In this module, I'm just going to give you some quick tips for using the Avenger interface. To start with then, when making adjustments to a dial, if you want to slow down the action, you can hold down Shift, after which it moves much more slowly. So that's a tip if you want to make smaller adjustments on the dial. And it's much easier to do so with Shift held down. Obviously it still moves in the same steps as on the dial, so in this case in semitones. But yeah, it's much easier to make finer adjustments. If you want to reset a control, then you can double click it. And on some of the dials you'll notice there's a blue ring here. Now this is a secondary parameter. So as you can see, this noise dial here, its main parameter just turns up the level of the noise, as we'll see later on. But there's a secondary parameter on the inside, which does something different, related but different. If I want to make adjustments to that, I just have to hold down the right button of the mouse and then move it up and down. And just like with the normal parameter, if I double click on the right side of the mouse, then it resets that parameter. And if you want to see the current value of a dial as you adjust it, rather than just relying on how it looks or sounds, then remember you can look down on the small display right at the bottom of the instrument, which will show you exactly what's going on with the parameter. There's also left and right click functionality in other areas too. For example, on the FX side, if I right click in the FX section rather than left click, which does nothing, the right click brings up a menu allowing you to load effects. Similarly, if you click on various headers, for example, the oscillator section here, then I get some options there too. And one of the useful ones is initialize, which is a reset. So if you've made lots of changes and you want to take it back to its default state, then I could just right click there, choose initialize, and then it goes right back to a default sawtooth waveform with no other processing or changes being made to it. And if I've changed lots of different sections and I want to reset everything, then if I click on the memory button up here, there is an initialize option for initializing the whole instrument, which I'll be doing a fair bit on the course. And there's also a save option there too if you want to save a preset, but we'll get to that a bit later on. And finally, as you can see here, when I hover over one of the oscillators or the drum section, you get these M and S buttons. Now these are just a shortcut to the mute and solo buttons on the mixer. So if you're creating a patch or editing a patch with lots of different oscillators and maybe drums as well, and you want to temporarily mute one of them or solo one of them so the others are muted, so you can hear that in isolation, then rather than going down and opening up the mixer section and then clicking on the buttons there, you can just use these M and S buttons at the top here. So now I've covered some of the operational basics. Let's move on to the first section of the instrument.